What if I told you could live comfortably for only around $1,000 a month? Would you pack your bags and move right away? It might sound crazy with how expensive the world is today, but there are some places where you can enjoy your life and not need a lot of money. My name is Henry, and I have been living abroad for the last few years, and I have found some places that you can live for only $1,000 to $1,500 a month. 10 years ago, $1,000 could work, but nowadays you definitely need a little bit more. If you want to live abroad within the next few years, then make sure you pay attention. Living in Paris doesn't mean you have to blow through your entire budget. But here's a disclaimer. $1,000 to $1,500 could get you by for monthly things like accommodation, entertainment, food, transportation. But consider the cost of visa runs, insurance, and other medical emergencies. They vary depending on the country you live in, so make sure you do your own research. Right now, I'm in Vietnam. It is a beautiful country. In my 2 years in Vietnam, I have found that the beaches here are not that good. But there is one place that stands out with a good beach and a nice city. This place is Da Nang, Vietnam. It has one of the lowest cost of living expenses for a popular nomad destination. Compared to somewhere like Bali, it's very affordable. It's still in its early stage of being an expat hub, so many of the nice apartments there are pretty affordable, and you can find a variety of gyms and other forms of entertainment. However, a con is that English is not so widely spoken in that city and in the rest of Vietnam, but you can get by day to day. Now, apartments in Da Nang are beautiful. You can find an apartment by the beach, or you can find an apartment in the city. Of course, by the beach, it will be a lot more expensive, but there are many options. On average, a decent one-bedroom apartment expect to pay around $300 to $500 or 9 million to 12 million Vietnamese dong. This can vary, but this is a pretty common price point for apartments in Da Nang. However, the ones in the lower end will be harder to find, and they will be a lot smaller. Regardless, I think the prices for a decent apartment in Da Nang are pretty good. If you want something smaller, you can find a studio with or without a kitchen. Usually the studios are about $200 to $300. I lived in a studio with a kitchen for a while, and I think if you don't need a lot of space, they can be really good. If you want just a bedroom and a shared kitchen, then you can find it for quite cheap, pretty good price. So now, if you want to get the best deals, make sure you go to Facebook and join the Da Nang Expat Facebook group page. This is the best way to get in contact with agents or find rental companies. And if you try to go directly with Airbnb, Agoda, or any other booking app or website, you're gonna pay quite a bit more. Now let's talk food. You have street food for $3 to $5, even cheaper at times. 35, 50K, 60K is a good price for local food. And you also have Western food that will cost around $6 to $8. Expect to pay about 100K to 200K for these dishes. You can also buy groceries for about $8 to $20 depending on how much you get. Food is pretty affordable here, so you don't need a big budget. Now let's talk transportation. Luckily in Vietnam, transportation is pretty cheap, pretty affordable. You can get scooter, taxi, Grab, pay around $2, $3, $4 for medium to short distances. And if you get a car, it'll be around 100K or $6. Wi-Fi and utilities are usually included in the rent, so don't have to worry about that, especially if you're just renting a serviced apartment. If you do want to get your own Wi-Fi or you have to pay extra utilities, then around $60 a month for utilities is reasonable. Now, entertainment is where your budget can be stretched a bit. If you plan to go out every weekend, go drinking a lot, or go to karaoke, then you're gonna spend quite a bit. Budget closer to $1,500 a month. But if you're gonna live a moderate, quiet life, then $1,000 to $1,200 a month is pretty reasonable. It's enough money for a pretty comfortable life. So without rent, you're gonna spend around $500 a month, maybe $600 depending on your spending habits. You could even go lower than that as well. Even though Vietnam has a low return rate, it's a pretty safe country. There's not a lot of crime. The healthcare is getting better in this country. Now that we've explored Da Nang, let's take a short trip south to another destination in Asia that might be even cheaper, and you prefer the island life, then this is probably the place for you. So Indonesia can be pretty affordable depending on where you go. Bali is not very affordable now. You need a bit more money. I made a video on it talking about how you might need closer to $1,500 to $2,000 a month to live a nice life there. But luckily, there are over 17,000 islands in Indonesia, so you have some options. And to the east of Bali, there is a small island slowly developing into a expat hub, basically like Bali 10 years ago. This island has an airport, or you can get there by ferry. This island is not as developed as Bali, but it's also not as populated as Bali. Many beautiful beaches and many beautiful mountains. Unfortunately, the English is not as good as in Bali, but it's slightly better than Vietnam. However, you will need Google Translate to get by. I went there for a weekend a few years ago and I loved it. You have the capital Mataram. It's like Denpasar, Bali. It's a small city towards the center of the island, but it's very hectic, so I recommend going south to this little town called Kuta. And there are many visa agents on the island. You can get your visa done on the island as well, so you don't have to go to Bali to renew visas. So it's very convenient. And Lombok is also pretty close to the Gili Islands as well. For safety, phone theft is kind of common there, but petty crimes are the only thing you really have to worry about. Other than that, if you're pretty smart about your surroundings and you avoid trouble, you should be good there. If you want budget accommodation, it costs around $300 for a room without a kitchen inside. And for an apartment, it can cost closer to $500, but that's pretty affordable. It's not that bad. The meals at local warungs can cost $2 to $4, but you're probably not gonna just want to eat at local warungs. If you want to eat at Western restaurants, the meals cost closer to $6, $7. It's going to be a little more expensive, but it's still pretty affordable. You can also save quite a bit if you get groceries. Now, if you want to rent a scooter, it can cost around $35 to $80, depending on the brand, the model, and how new it is. If you just take Grab around or one of the scooter apps, the ride-sharing app, then it'll be around $2 to $5, so it's not very expensive. Usually the accommodations include AC and other utilities. The Wi-Fi on the island is not so bad, but it's fast enough to get work done. And if you need faster Wi-Fi, you can go to any of the local cafes. Entertainment will vary. The nightlife there is not as big as it is in Bali. However, there are some bars there. You can enjoy yourself. Surfing lessons. You can take boat rides around the island. So I recommend having around $70. The gyms there can be a little expensive, about $100 if you go to a Western gym or more. As you can see, Lombok is not so bad. It's not as developed as Bali, but that can be a blessing. It's a lot more quiet, not as expensive. You save a lot more money, and you can avoid all the crowds. And finally, it's still as beautiful as Bali. In Lombok, I think you can live pretty well for $1,000 to $1,300 a month. And then $1,500 to $2,000 a month, you can live very, very well. While Lombok offers tranquility and affordability, Thailand might just take it a step further. Thailand is very popular. It has one of the highest, if not the highest, population of expats living in a country, and it makes sense. You have big cities like Bangkok, or you have the small little cities like Phuket, Pattaya, Chiang Mai. So you have many options in Thailand. You even have small islands like Koh Samui. Problem is, $1,000 is starting to not go as far as it did before. Now you might need closer to $1,500 a month. However, there is one place that is not as expensive. In the north, you don't have many beaches. If you like beaches, maybe this isn't the place for you, but Chiang Mai might be a good option if you want to stay closer to $1,000 a month. It's not the perfect place. There is air pollution. However, it could be a good place for a short stay. The English there is also a lot better than in Indonesia and Vietnam. You're gonna definitely meet more locals that can speak English. For accommodation, you can get a studio around $300 or a one-bedroom apartment for $600. The price will vary, but expect to pay around $300 to $600 for a standard accommodation. You can definitely go over that if you want something a bit bigger. Like anywhere else in Asia, you'll be better finding a place to stay directly through agents, finding them on Facebook. You'll get the best prices this way. For entertainment, gym, movies, and occasional outing, add $50 to $140, depending on the activities. Like if you go to an expensive gym or if you go out on weekends often. Food can vary depending if you eat local or Western. Thai street food meals cost about 85 cents to $2, and this will be about $85 to $140 monthly if you're eating out often. A month of groceries can be around $115 to $170, depending on how much Western food you purchase. The trucks or the tuk-tuks, they can cost about 60 cents to $1.40. Renting a motorbike can be around $85 a month. And fuel adding another $30 to $40. Utilities will vary, of course, so budget around $70 just in case. For Thailand itself, I think Chiang Mai is definitely one of the cheaper options to stay. However, it definitely isn't as luxurious or as tropical as some of the other destinations. I think that's a big reason why it's still quite affordable. Most people would prefer to go to Bangkok. Okay, after talking about Asia for a while, let's go to Eastern Europe. let's go somewhere a little more cooler. So after spending a lot of time in Asia, perhaps Europe might be a nice break for you. Tbilisi is a beautiful city surrounded by mountains. English is pretty common in the city. Many locals know how to speak it, and there's a pretty big expat community there, so making friends there won't be as hard. Living here would offer a nice change of scenery compared to Asia, and the infrastructure of the city is pretty good, so you can work online from here and not have to worry about bad Wi-Fi or other issues with the internet. If you're looking for a one-bedroom apartment in the city center, expect to pay about $500 to $1,000. I know it's pretty broad, but this is going to cover a lot of the different types of accommodation. This is just if you want to stay in the city center. If you want something away from the city center, then you can find places for about $300 to $800, a lot more affordable. If you want to stay in a serviced apartment, then you can find apartments for around $700. This is great if you don't want to commit to a long lease. For utilities, it can be around $55 to $110. This is for electricity, water, heating, and this includes price fluctuations depending on the season. But it's important to note that the prices of rent have gone up over the years because of the influx of expats coming in, so there's a lot more demand. While you can find affordable options, you're gonna have to do a lot of research. Now for unlimited internet, about $15 to $26, a mobile plan $7 to $15, groceries monthly for one person $185 to $260, dining out at a mid-range restaurant about $11 to $22, public transport is about $19 for unlimited use for the month, and taxi rides are typically around $1 to $4. Fuel is around $1.30 if you decide to get a car. Gym memberships can cost up to $90. For a modest lifestyle, you can pay around $900 to $1,500. If you're smart with your budgeting, you find a cheap accommodation, then you can definitely live below $1,000, but remember, have more than just $1,000. I think $1,200 to $1,500 is a nice price point for anywhere in the world, especially in Asia, Eastern Europe, or Central America. Nowadays, $1,000 won't get you far. There are some places you can live well on a budget. I have another video talking about places where you can't live on only $1,000 anymore. I see many people making videos about living in these extravagant, beautiful places for less than $1,000 a month, but I think a lot of this information is so outdated. You really have to go off the beaten path nowadays to live on a budget. So make sure to check out that video, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching.